Vlad, we just heard from the mayor a little earlier here that she believes charges are likely and could be filed as soon as later today. I want to step out of the way so you can take a look at where we're standing. We're standing along the parade route, and you can see the chairs, beach balls, water bottles, things that were left behind as people quite literally ran for their lives, fleeing the gunfire. Now, that person of interest, he's behind bars. One witness we talked to described the aftermath as gruesome. Gunshots rang out in the Chicago suburb of Highland Park at the community's 4th of July parade. Police say a gunman positioned on top of a nearby building fired a high-power rifle at the crowd below, killing 6 and injuring at least 24 more. The victims ranged in age from 8 to 85. People in the crowd ran for cover in nearby businesses. Parents grabbed their children and fled.
I put my son in a dumpster, and he sat there with his dog, and I went back to look for the rest of my family.
All I thought about is just, getting my daughter to safety, and I ran with her.
Police identified 21-year-old Robert Bobby Cremo III as a person of interest. They say he left the scene in a vehicle and was captured more than 8 hours later after a brief pursuit. Cremo was apparently an aspiring musician. Videos posted to YouTube, which have since been taken down, show disturbing images alluding to gun violence.
I'm so sorry. From the bottom of my heart.
The 21-year-old lived with his uncle, Paul Cremo. He told our Chicago station WBBM he's heartbroken for the victims.
There's no indication that I've seen at all that would lead up to this.
And there was multiple pop, 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 pop.
Miles Zaremski was just arriving at the parade when the shooter opened fire.
And then it was a stampede of people
Running
away. It was frightening to see. And it's like being in a war zone. And then I started seeing blood on the ground.
2 of those killed have been identified. Nicholas Toledo, a grandfather visiting family, and Jackie Sundheim, a local teacher. Another teacher, Zoe Kolpak, along with members of her family, are hospitalized after being shot in front of her 2 children. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker said the gunman will be held accountable.
It is devastating that a celebration of America was ripped apart by our uniquely American plague.
There is a hospital just a few minutes from the shooting scene here. It received 25 patients with gunshot wounds. Within 12 hours, 19 of those patients had been treated and released. We understand at least 4 of the shooting victims taken to that hospital were children. But when you think about that, 19 people who were wounded, treated and released within 12 hours, gives you a sense for just how bad this situation could have been. Not that it's not tragic. 6 people have lost their lives. I certainly don't want to diminish that. But when you think about the relatively minor treatable injuries, that's just the sheer volume, guys, just how many people were impacted by this shooting and, the turns it certainly could have taken. You're talking about life and death being a matter of inches.
Yeah, and we all saw that video, Kris, where for a moment it seems as if what people are hearing and seeing is part of the parade. What else did that witness tell you about what they witnessed?
Well, he, longtime resident here, was walking up to the parade route just getting to the parade route right as the gunshots. You heard him describe it as a pop, 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 a pause, and then pop, 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 pop again. He thinks he heard more than 30 rounds, perhaps. He describes it as seeing like just a stampede, a wave of people running at him, and then realizing it had been a gunshot. And he had hoped that maybe he could help or render aid. He said as he got there, he started to notice people running away with blood on their arms or their legs, and then he came upon 2 people that were on the ground. 2 women, he says, that appeared to not have survived. It was a gruesome scene. We talked to a surgeon who was here with his family and stayed to render aid. And this is a guy who has done trauma surgeries here in Chicago. And what he described, he said this wasn't like trauma we see. This was something out of a war zone. Truly, he's like, these were battlefield injuries.
Kris, just talking about the surgeon, what it reminds me of is when you talk about the number of injuries and how bad it could be, also it's the heroic efforts of the medical staff, these hospitals, the fact that we have advanced healthcare facilities, and that is part of the reason why many of these shootings don't turn out to be as bad as they could be, is because they have really good medical intervention. But really, they should be much worse, as you point out. So when I was watching, as this story was developing, I kept on thinking to myself, who goes to these parades, right? It's families with little kids, it's grandparents. What are we learning about the victims?
Well, as you said, it's the 4th of July. It's one of those summer holidays where families come together, where friends come together, where people line the streets to celebrate not only the country's birthday, but also to be together. It was the first time Highland Park had held this parade since the pandemic. So there were a lot of people here, and it was a celebratory mood. We know that the victims were 8 to 85. Zoe, the school teacher in our story, we understand that Zoe, her husband, and grandparents of the children were all wounded in front of their 2 kids. This is going to affect a wide spectrum of this community, and we're talking about more than 24 people, probably around 30. It sounds like were treated for some kind of gunshot wound. And some of these are serious. We know that at least 19 were treated and released, but there are others that are still in the hospital.
So, Kris, you've had an opportunity to speak with the mayor of Highland Park and also Illinois Senator Dick Durbin about the shooting. What did they tell you?
Well, Senator Durbin, I asked him, I said, you've passed gun legislation, but yet these mass shootings seem to happen every week. Is there anything you can do? And, I got an answer I heard a lot from Senator Durbin when I was up on covering Capitol Hill, which is there are 50 Republicans, there are 50 Democrats. They managed to get 65 or so to agree on the bill that's been passed. But from there, he kind of shook his head and said people are going to have to vote. If they want to change gun laws, they're going to have to vote in people who share that view, because right now there aren't the votes to do it. I asked him if he's frustrated not being able to really do anything, and he said people got to vote. The mayor wants to talk about gun violence. This is a city, Highland Park, that has an assault weapons ban. Yet a high-powered rifle that, at least initially appears to have been legally purchased was used to kill 6 people here and wound dozens more. So, at the same time, this is the conversation we seem to have after every one of these mass shootings. What can be done? And that's the conversation that's starting here now, and it's also, I think, a bit of truth from the senator that there are limited legislative options that can actually pass both houses of Congress and get to the president's desk to address these mass shootings.
Yeah, I feel like we had sort of a moment where we were applauding these senators for at least doing something, moving the needle, historic, and all this other stuff these words that we use, and here we are back again, like it never happened. Kris, thank you very much.